Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Be Extraordinary podcast. We have a ridiculously special guest today. This gentleman I met on the gram, and we have been talking for, God, how long has it been? It's been probably over a year now. And if we would have talked about that 8-9 years ago, somebody would have thought like we're pen pals and crazy, but now that just seems to be more normal than everything else. And I know we're going to get into that a lot, but Mr. Neel Dhingra, thank you so much for being here on the show. It's a huge honor to have you, man. I'm just super pumped that we get a chance to kind of spend some time together, man.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, likewise, dude. I really appreciate you putting this together.
Yeah, it's a big deal, man. Those that don't know Neel have probably been living in a hole. If you're in the mortgage business or in the real estate space or, God, even the insurance space, it just seems like you're everywhere, man. And that's I know you'll talk about that through kind of your story here, but I don't think that was always that way. I think that's been somewhat, recent, if you will. But I mean, I feel like every time I turn on my feed, it doesn't matter what platform I'm on, I get blasted with just value every single day, man. So if it's okay, Neel, just for the listeners at home that don't know you, I'd like to just kind of go through your quick bio real quick. Obviously, that won't do it justice, but we'll kind of get into that. So if that's okay, I'll kind of go through kind of a generic deal here. But Neel's the top producing mortgage lender based out of Nevada. We're a little bit of time zone difference here, so thanks for being up early, man. Doing business in multiple states, not just there, but his business really exploded, and he'll talk about this when he started really putting out some significant content marketing on multiple platforms, and so much so that recently he's been recognized as one of the top video influencers by BombBomb and Tom Ferry, which I've seen some really good content from Tom and you over the last couple months. It's been amazing. But Neel produces a ton of volume of content on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. He also produces a podcast. It's the Neel Home Podcast, which is available on YouTube and all the platforms. And the bottom line, it just seems like anywhere you open up and there's a digital screen, you're going to see Neel. So thank you so much for being here today, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It's been pretty crazy to connect with you because, it's been over a year. And what's weird is when you meet people through online, through content, you get to know them and there's that relatability over time. And then when you jump on calls like this or you do face to face, it's like you're buddies. Like, you know what I mean? It's normal. It's not weird. So it is cool that it is like the actual new way to make relationships.
It is true, man. Well, it's cool. I don't know if you guys have connected on socials with Neel, but
I did briefly on LinkedIn, I think, for a quick second.
Yeah, Neel, to give you context of who you are to me, man, I know you've had most dialogue with Brett throughout the last year, but Brett sent Rod and I a text or whatever, a year ago. He's like, man, you got to check this guy out, and really getting things going on the content side. In our infancy stage, if you will. And I remember Neel's the guy that made you feel really bad about your current posts. I'm like, there's Gary V, and then there's Neel, and then there's the rest of us. That was my experience. So I used to actually model your posts and watch a lot of your stuff. So thanks for that exposure, man.
Yeah, man.
That's funny. Well, man, so let's see, it's been probably over a year, and we connected. One of the coolest things about Neel, he sent me a voice text through Instagram, and I had never seen that before. I'd actually seen it on LinkedIn, but I'd never seen it on Instagram before. And immediately I was like, wow, number one, he responded. Number two, it was like super personal. We had like a 30-minute dialogue, which was really cool. And it just made an impact on me. And I know I've carried that in with the way that, kind of I work on those platforms now, just to it's not just about what you post. It's not just about that. It's about truly building those valuable relationships. And it made a big impact to me, man, because it just immediately, I was like, wow, this is a guy that's doing something special. And I know he's got a million other things going on, and he took the time to actually do that. And if he's doing that for me, then he's doing that for a ton of other people. So, kudos to you, man. I borrow a lot from you, but that was probably one of my biggest impressions early on in a relationship.
Yeah, dude, it doesn't take much time to just send out a quick message. It's actually easier, I think, because you just hit the button and send the voice memo. It's personal. You can respond quicker. It only takes a couple minutes, and people appreciate that, especially nowadays when everyone's so busy or, like I've reached out to people before and there's no expectation, whatever, that a lot of times they just don't respond to you. It gets stuck in their in their queue, or they just don't see it, or maybe they saw it and they're too busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're going to take the time to reply to people, that's a differentiator, right? So, I mean, we're all looking for like competitive advantages as far as, growing our brand or growing our business, and just doing the things that other people aren't willing to do or aren't doing is the number one thing, right?
Well, there's a philosophy.
Yeah, right. There's no fanciness in that.
Yeah.
That's just doing the little things, right?
Yeah. I mean, like what? I mean, you think about this too. How many times people engage with content on all these platforms? They leave comments, whatever. I mean, I used to be like, when I first got on there, I was like, so worried to put myself out there. So I would even type a comment and then delete it and be like, I don't want to post that. That looks dumb. Or like, people are going to think I'm an idiot. And that's just the type of comment on somebody else's post. So imagine like the mindset of people of like, they can't even put themselves out there and on that little level. And then if somebody does, and you don't even take the time to reply to them, or if somebody does send you a message and you don't take the time to reply, like that, and your supposed goal was to build a brand online, like, it's not congruent there. So I just think you got to just put in the extra time there.
So maybe that's a great place to start, because I know a little of your story just from passively watching and trying to pick up a ton of nuggets along the way. But, obviously what you see today is not what it was before. And just from that comment shows me that, and I'll go on a limb here and say that it's potentially your personality type to be more introverted, and to be that significant on social, that just seems like a muscle that wasn't there, right? If you say something like that, and which is completely different than what it is now. So will you kind of walk us through kind of your story as far as, kind of in the mortgage business, what's happened in the last couple years? I know you make you're a big component about once content became kind of a pinnacle cornerstone of your business, it significantly made a difference. Can you kind of walk us through kind of your story and how it's led you to here today?
Yeah, for sure. So I did, I've been doing mortgages for about 15, 16 years, and then just started to plateau, not really growing, doing well, from a business standpoint, but not getting to the next level. And then just started to see, other guys online, not in our space, but in different areas, like the Gary V's and all these other guys building brands online and growing their business that way. And I was like, what's this about? And just started to get more into it. And then I was like, shit, I should be leveraging this for my business or for my own personal stuff, and just started to put out little things here and there. And the first things I started with were just making lists of like the basic questions that clients always ask, the things that come up in conversations a lot, and taking those little tidbits and using those as pieces of content. Because I thought maybe if one guy has this question, or if I'm getting this question a lot, maybe other people benefit from it too. So I started to do those, and these videos were like cringe-worthy. I mean, like just horrible. You can talk one-to-one, but then when you turn the camera on, you get in your head, and then you're not yourself, and it just takes time. But like you said, it's just like a muscle. You just have to, like, you keep working out, you keep doing it, and then eventually become to where you're just natural and you can be yourself on camera. So that takes time, and I don't really know any hack for that other than to just do it, because I noticed some people are supernatural. Like you seem like the kind of guy who just, kind of can turn on a camera and is fine, right? But for me, it took like 6 months to a year before I could be really, normal on camera. So it's just going to be different for everybody. But yeah, so I started doing that, then started putting out more and more content. Then what I noticed was a lot of the industry people would reach out to me, like in the mortgage industry and the real estate industry, and like say, hey, I need help with my content too. And I like how you are admitting that you suck and that you got better. Like that's inspiring to me. So they would ask for advice and things like that. And if you're in the mortgage business, your number one source of business is referral partners. And then next comes direct to consumer, because the bottom line about getting a mortgage is nobody wants to get a mortgage, right? They want a house. So we're just kind of like a necessary evil. We kind of get the shit end of the deal, if you think about it. Most people they deal with the real estate agents and all these guys first. So I was like, well, what's the most valuable thing I could provide to this group of people that could potentially refer me business? And the number one thing they needed help with was digital. was, digital marketing, content marketing, video marketing, things like that. So I ended up building a video team and just helping local agents in my market. And I kind of just shifted from like, instead of like going around asking everybody for business, I just started going and asking, hey, how can I help with your business? Right. And started helping them. And then in return, built some really, really good relationships where people will refer me everybody, like they would send me their family and friends and all that stuff, and just kind of built those one by one. And then it just kind of started to build momentum. And then the next thing was like, it started, other people within the industry started to see. So then I was able to recruit and build a team based on the leverage of the online brands, the personal brand content and all that stuff that was putting out there. Wow. So I'm pretty much grown from like, 3-4 people to now we have 23 people. All the new people that were added to the team came either as a result of people I met on social or a friend of somebody who was on social who sent them over to me. So it's kind of just changed my business and my life, because now I've got, a really scalable business that's just getting started. And it's kind of thanks to just put myself out there online.
Wow. I had, see, that's why you ask good questions, right? Because I got a piece of that, but that's a whole can of worms. I don't even know where to start right there. That's amazing.
Yeah. So your content is turned into a recruiting tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Literally, what problems do you have? Say you have a problem recruiting, say you have a problem getting new business, say you have a problem with clients thinking of you based on price only, right? And they just want to find the cheapest deal out there or whatever, right? Whatever those, they're not treating you right or whatever problems you have, the content solves those problems because it makes people value you, like you're putting out valuable advice, they respect you. So I noticed this, if I connect with somebody who's already seen my content, conversation is amazing. Like, oh, I'm getting a message or I'm talking to somebody and they say, dude, thanks for taking the time. I know you're busy, or thank you for helping me, or would you have time to meet with me? Like, would I have time? I just spent a decade asking people if they'd meet with me, and now you're asking me, like, if I got time. Yeah, I got time. Let's go. So it's just a shift. And I was like, oh shit, this is way better than the old way. I'm just knocking on doors, sending mailers and cold calling people and, getting hung up on. And it's just like that. I don't think the consumer wants to be bothered like that anymore. You do have to sell. Like I wouldn't, sales is a big thing. You got to close people and all that. But to get that attention up, to get the client first, client acquisition, it's got to be a different way. It can't be salesy, in my opinion. It's got to be more based on value.
I wanted to ask you too, to your thought, Rod, and what's funny, I can relate totally. Like when you first start posting on social, even if you're comfortable, like, Rod and I would turn to Brett and be like, hey man, like it just took me an hour and a half to do that post. Like, is this what you do every day? And he's like, look, man, you'll get better, and I'm like, perfect. And I can already see just
I still have training wheels on.
Yeah. In the infancy stage. So it's cool to hear you say, hey, I don't have a hack for that. It's literally just, it's reps, it's hours. So that was cool. And then one of the questions I had known a little bit about your story was, and it's cool that you say, start with the problem. Like, hey, what problems do you have? And then let the content go to work for you once you're giving that value away. But I was going to ask you in your personal business, because like literally you seem like somebody that you're living the 10X rule, right? And I'm sure we'll get to that. But your business has gone bonkers. But specifically to your business, and you mentioned referral partners, you mentioned your client base, you mentioned recruiting. Where was the leverage point for you, and what problem did it go? Okay, was it referral partners? Was it recruiting? Was it all of it kind of rising? Or was there a specific part, that really took off?
I didn't really know what it was going to be when I first started doing it. I just started to, get content out there, started to think, how could I just provide some sort of value? You hear this term value and you're like, oh, I got to put out value. Well, what does that mean? Like you just said, like value to who? Is it to this group or that group or this group? So I was kind of just all over the place in the beginning just to see what would work, and just started, trying different ideas. And then it just kind of occurred that most of the people were in the industry. Those are the people that are online the most. So while I do put out the consumer content still, I just started leaning more towards the industry content because those are the most active people in my audience. So I wanted to serve them. The other cool thing is it doesn't necessarily turn off a consumer if you're helping other people within the industry, because they view it as, oh, this guy's a thought leader, or he's the teacher. I want to work with the teacher, not the student. You know what I mean? So it kind of serves all goals. But I've seen other guys in my space put out content, and their content has been more towards, people who are trying to buy their first home, or, they're consumers, and they got most engagement that way. So then they leaned in on that. So I think you just tried a few different things, see what works. You can see the analytics and see where you're connecting, where you're not. The other cool thing is, when you talked about taking the time to take a post, I was the same way. I would write a caption and get this perfect picture and all this. And sometimes, you can take the time to write really cool captions. It's almost like a blog post, right? But what I found also overall, those are good posts, but overall, the value of a single piece of content has continued to decline, right? Over time, because of so much content coming at the user. It's like a fire hose. So in that mode, what's better? Is it consistency, or is it quality, or is it volume? And I just figured to be consistent, get a base level of quality, and put out as much content as possible. Make it like a machine. And if you don't have the time, do you have an extra few $100 to hire a virtual assistant to help you post it? You can put all your ideas in a Google Drive. It's still you on the videos. It's still your voice. It's still your caption that you wrote, but just have somebody repurpose this for you. It's not that expensive. And then now, while we're here doing this podcast, I've posted 3 times because somebody here in the office is doing it, right? Like, the posts are already there. They just have to repurpose them and put them on different platforms for me. Then I can hop in and engage.
Wow. I think that's super helpful too. And one thing you said a little bit ago is kind of to further that point, is you said you make it non-salesy. To me, that's like a big responder right there, right? It's like I'm afraid. I shouldn't say afraid, but it's like I'm cautious of coming off like I'm looking for something in the tone of my post versus, and I don't know, maybe you'd say that's a common thing with people that aren't as savvy as you, or maybe Brett or Taylor, which I don't put myself in that class, but the fact that something that you're aware enough not to make something salesy, that is something I respond to. So I dig that you say that.
Yeah, it's easy to say. It's kind of harder to do, but you kind of just have to take yourself out. Like, do what I want to get from this, or what are they going to get from this? Mm-hmm. And I know Brett did this thing recently. He did like a Q&A. I remember it was a few months back. You got these really cool questions, and you just answered every single one in your stories. And I was like, yeah, that's a dope series, because it shows you that, hey, people in even if it's a small audience, it doesn't matter, right? They still have questions. They still want to know stuff about you or your industry or whatever. And just answering those questions is valuable to them. And I used to think that content will be boring, but this is what people want. Like, there's a guy I met who puts out financial hacks and financial advice, and he's gone viral. Like, this dude's getting, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views daily based on just simple financial hacks. So it shows you that the consumer has questions about insurance, about real estate, about mortgages, about finance, and they want to learn. And Gen Z and millennials think that they can do everything themselves. They want to like Google it and figure it out themselves. So they want to learn this stuff, So I think it's just a matter of answering their questions. You don't even have to put a call to action in a lot of in the informational content. You just put out the information or answer their question.
Yeah, that's super solid. That's super solid. Well, and we've taken a lot. I've taken a lot from just watching the way that you do things, which is cool, because we always have a saying that we learned it from a mentor a long time ago. It's okay to be a copycat as long as you copy the right cat. I think a lot of times what's holding people back is like, oh, I have to be original. You got to be you. But at the same time, like, there is so many examples of people doing stuff in different industries and doing different things. It's okay to take flavors from what other people do and then put your own personality on it. How much of what you do, Neel, is just completely original? You have an idea while you're making breakfast and it's yours, or how much of it is something you see somewhere else and you pull that into your own space?
Yeah, I think the ideas, the topics and things mostly are from what I just thought of just different ideas that came up during the time that we were thinking of doing content. But once you get into this mode of creating, you'll get more creative. Like, I'm not a really creative person, but it's just that wheel starts turning, and then you start thinking, oh, this is another idea. And now we have so many ideas that probably never even get to them all. But you do get inspired, to your point, by watching other people's content. That's a huge thing, because what happens is not that you're seeing it and you're just going to steal exactly the thing. But what happens is it inspires you to make your own version of that. Or I would have said it this way, or, oh, I'm going to take that format and use it for my video. So, that there is a lot of that going on, and it's nothing wrong with it. Like, I get inspired by other people's content all the time. I see a reel that went viral and I'm like, oh, I could do that better, or I could change the message, apply it to my industry, and it could do well. So you just kind of have to get in that mode of creating, and then you'll start to come up with all these ideas. The cool thing is there's a lot of different ways to win, right? You can do it through writing, you can do it through, podcasting, you could do it, through videos, you can do it through images. I mean, there's all different types of content that can win right now. So you just kind of have to find what you like and what works for you.
Right. Well, if it's okay with you guys, so we were talking about this before the mic got turned on, is like, people use the word content all the time. And like, when you're in that space even a little bit, you understand that. But how would you define content, Neel? For somebody that's listening to this podcast, they don't have a clue about what we're talking about, but they've maybe seen this stuff. How would you define your content?
So content, for me is something that is basically, something that would help the people I'm trying to serve. So that's going to be informational content. Now, you may be able to entertain people, and your content could be entertaining. I'm not particularly funny, or I can't do the dancing TikToks or any of that shit, but I could definitely inform you, right? I'm a nerd, and I know my numbers, and I know this shit, so I'm going to tell you what I know, right? So that's my content. Content's going to be different for everybody, and people like to consume different types of content. But, there's all kinds of different stuff. What we're doing right here is a podcast. People love consuming long-form audio. The stats on podcasts are insane as far as like somebody starts a podcast or downloads a podcast, how many people actually finish that podcast. It's unreal. And you talk about like in the world where we can't even get people, we're fighting for the few seconds of attention on video on Instagram to get 100 or 200 or 1,000 or however many numbers of people you can get on your podcast, to get people to download and listen to you for 40 minutes. I mean, that's insane, right? In 2021. So yeah, podcasting is great content. There's, videos are great content, quick short form content, long form content, all that stuff. There's all different types, but the main goal is somebody's got to get something out of it. Either they have to be informed or they have to be entertained. And some people can do both together. But yeah, they have to walk away with something from your content.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I think we just use that word all the time. It's kind of like that buzzword. And sometimes I know previously I've been in rooms where I kind of just nod my head and I'm like, oh yeah. But I don't really understand it that much. I just, I was like, well, these are just videos people are putting out. It's like, well, no, like what exactly is that? And it's valuable information for somebody on the other end of the screen, right? Or listening to it that gives them something. It gives them something. So the other thing too, Neel, that I'd love, maybe kind of a playbook here. Now, is somebody listening to this, they do some videos online. They know that content's important. They see the value, but they're trying to get more consistent on either their processes or how they do it or all that good stuff. One thing you mentioned to me that stuck out to me was you said, hey, Brett, like you see all this stuff on socials, but what you don't see is the stuff that's even more valuable. And I know that you're big with making sure that you have a solid email, a solid email marketing plan to go to your existing customers and I think to your referral partners. Can you kind of, for somebody that's listening to this that wanted to take away a nugget, would you kind of give some explanation to that and how that looks?
Yeah. So when you post, only, especially today, this algorithm is so difficult. Only certain people are seeing your post. So what's the best way to make sure more people see it is to take the distribution into your own hands. So if you have a database of all your past clients and you have a database of referral partners, why aren't we emailing the content to them? So what I started to do was take that, post a video on YouTube, and here's my market outlook for 2021. Real estate market's pretty volatile. It's been a crazy year in financial markets. Here's what's gonna happen based on all the data that I'm seeing. I crunched all the numbers, and here's what's going on. Take that video, post it on YouTube, gets a few hundred views, no big deal, right? But take the thumbnail, put it into an email, and say the same thing. Hey, I prepared this video. I think you guys will find it useful. Check it out. Send it out to everybody. Now you've driven traffic to the video, but also you've given value to all of your people. Now think about this. Look at emails today that you get from industry people. These are like these corporate emails. They signed up for some service. They send some bullshit out. It's like, it's not even the dude. I can tell if your email starts with the word dear, like you fucked up already. I mean, it's over, bro. Like
so true.
Somebody who would greet somebody, dear Brett, hope you're having
Thomas
a well, like what the, yeah, like, but this, I swear to God, I get emails like that because some idiot wrote this email for a service and they're, they outsource their email marketing, or, it says, hello, so-and-so, it's just like, it should be the way you would talk, make it conversational. And so I type those emails. Yes, I'm leveraging technology, but the email I wrote, it's the way I would talk to somebody normally. So, that's definitely a hack I think people should use. But yeah, make sure your copy is good and you put some valuable piece of content in there. So in a world where people are getting all this garbage, corporate content, it's going to spam. You're the guy that sticks out with a personal video that's really relevant to what's going on right now. You know what I mean? Like you talk about insurance a lot. You guys talk about, how premiums have gone up and what's going on. What are the problems that people are facing to get insurance in Florida? Like what are the ways to work around this? What are the hacks for these problems? And you put out a video like that, everyone's like, well, I put out that video and I got 83 views. It's a waste of my time. No, it's not, because if you distribute that video to everybody, now you're the one guy who did that. I guarantee you, in my market, I'm the only guy who sent that Outlook video, who took the time to make that video and to email it to everybody. So as a result, people reply to the emails. Thanks for sending me, appreciate the info. Or they consume it and I'm just top of mind. So if I continue to do that throughout the year, what's going to happen when they need a mortgage or when they need something real estate related? I'm the first guy they're going to think of. Or what's going to happen when a coworker is talking about it? Oh, you got to check out Neel. You got to call this guy. He'll take care of you. He knows his shit. So that's what you want. You want to like build that thing where, this thing where people are viewing you as the expert in your space. And then the second part to that, not to go off on a tangent, but is if you can start to show more of your personal stuff, like, in your stories and things like that, then you get this thing where, yeah, Neel knows his stuff, but yeah, he seems like a good guy. He seems like a good dude. That's who I want to work with, so if you can add in the personal stuff, which I know people are kind of hesitant to show their family and their personal things on social, and that's kind of a personal decision. But if you can start to show what you're doing outside of work, that's really cool. Like when I watch your stories and you guys are on a boat or you're with your son, like, I'm like, dude, this is a good guy. Like, it's fun. Like you get that relatability. If you chose not to share that, then I would just know you as the insurance guy, and it'd be less of a valuable connection online.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a really cool. That's a cool point too, because one of the things that, as you were talking, that resonated with me is I started to think about. You talked about your path in mortgages, right? In 15, 17 years, whatever, and then come to this crossroads where you're going to implement and go all in on content. I was going to ask about personal brand, and I was going to ask about where that lift potentially where you've seen or felt that lift. But I was actually thinking just about in all the potential areas, where have you seen the biggest lift? Is it one thing? Is it one specific thing, or is it just kind of across the board? Where they've taken?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think it's like it's a bunch of different things. It's going to be, it's more referrals. It's just more of, it's kind of more of everything. You're getting more referrals from people. You're getting more opportunities. You're getting more people reaching out to you who want to work with your organization as employees, or, you can go online and say, hey, here's a position we're looking to fill, and you'll get some qualified people right away versus having to chase people down. You'll also, I mean, the bottom line is you're making a lot more money, So it's like, if I'm the same dude and my income went up 10 times, then like, what changed? This is the only thing that changed. You know what I mean? So it's like, you're just getting more referrals. The phone's just ringing more, the DM's ringing more. So it's kind of like more of everything. And you can't really have like a set target for a lot of the stuff, because if you look at one piece of content, what did I get from it? It may be nothing, but it's in the aggregate you win. You know what I mean? Like it's over 100 pieces of content that you're going to win.
Right. That's the interesting part about this game. It's not a conversions type, I paid this much for these amount of leads and I got this response back and I know how much it's going to be. It's really one of those things that kind of just, from what I've seen, is just integrated into what you do. Right. And you just know that I'm going to see lift because of it. My reach is going to expand. And as my reach expands, my the value expands. So.
Yeah. Neel, do you even track ROI? Cause that was my thought. Like there's probably a level of this where it's brand. And from a personal brand, I totally get the value of being the expert, being the personable expert, and growing your referral partners, growing your customer bases. But is there a part of it that you actually look for a certain amount of ROI, or is it just an overwhelming of content from different vehicles that your ROI is looking like? Look, dude, I just 10x my income. What do you want? You want a formula?
Like you can do. You can look at, like, if you run an ad, you can see how many people converted. So we do paid media, and we do run ads, and we try and do them more creatively than the next guy. So on Facebook, we'll run an ad, and we'll be able to see, how many people came through and who are now in the funnel, and then how many of those turned into deals eventually. So that's different on the advertising front. But on the content marketing front, you can't track the ROI of an individual piece of content, but you can track the relationship. So for example, if I put out 15 pieces of content this week, and as a result, I started a conversation with a guy, and then we take it offline. We're going to meet up to talk about business. I'm going to help him with some stuff. And now that guy's in my CRM, right, as a referral partner. Now I can track, okay, what am I doing? What's the value of this relationship? Now, in a few months, I could see, okay, well, this guy sent me 4 clients. Here's what we've earned on those. So I can track direct results from that one relationship, right? So we track that kind of stuff. But I don't know how many pieces of content or where I'm going to catch this guy. So you just kind of have to think, like, in your business is similar. How often in the life cycle do people need you? Right? In my case, they may need me once in 5 years or longer. So in that case, like, I'm looking for a needle in a haystack as far as like content goes. Like I can't, sell insurance to all the followers in my audience because or mortgage to all of them, because they may not need it right now. They might have it, or, it's easier if you guys can sell something that people could benefit from at any point, but in my case, it takes time. So, it's kind of catch people at the right place, right time. So if I just keep doing it, the odds of catching them at the right place, right time are going to go up.
And also, I wanted to follow it back to you taking a YouTube clip and being able to put it in an email campaign. Do you mind sharing what tool you use to do that and how you distribute it? Do you address people by name? Do you send it in BCC everyone, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so how you do it is you create a list. You can create a dynamic list. I use Salesforce as our CRM. That's kind of complex. Do you guys have a CRM? What do you use?
We have a management system, but it acts as a CRM, but we have some separate tools on that. So we have some email stuff.
Yeah. So I would start, in the future, that's something you definitely, investing in an enterprise grade CRM has been a game changer for me. It takes some time and investment up front, but if you look at any of the businesses that have scaled, to high levels, or businesses that have been acquired, they all will tell you they had a enterprise grade CRM. So for me, that's Salesforce. There's many others, HubSpot, different things like this, right? So you get your clients, they come into every single person that reaches out to you, that inquires with you, that could be a potential source of business, either directly or through referrals, is in that CRM. And those people are on different lists, could be lists of real estate agents, lists of things. Right. So when you write your emails, you want to make sure they're segmented based. You can't write 1,000 individual emails. Sure. So we want to leverage technology, but we don't want to write the same copy to every single person.
Right.
So how I would address a consumer is going to be different than how I would address a real estate agent, right? So if the lists are segmented into groups of like consumers, these are people who reached out who never bought. These are my past clients. These are real estate agents. These are insurance agents. These are builders and real estate developers. And now I've got all these segments. And yes, on occasion, there's a piece of content where I could write the same copy to everybody. But for the most part, I'm segmenting. So I'm going to write like 5 or 6 different emails. In whatever software you use, you put variable fields. So the subject line, which is really important, that's kind of determining what's going to open, how an email is going to get opened. So for example, if I'm emailing a consumer, I might put a variable field on the subject line, their address. So that's all in the CRM, right?
Oh, wow.
If you get an email with your address on the subject line,
Yeah.
I might open that email. I might be like, oh shit, maybe it's a property tax notice or I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Make it relevant to them. So now on the real estate side, you're putting together these subject lines and they can be variable or it could be the same. Now in the email, you're putting hi or hey, and it's variable field first name.
Yep.
So that, it's going to come to, hey, Brett, and then it's going to go into the copy of the email. Now the clip, I put in a thumbnail, which is essentially just an image of the video. So it might be for, on YouTube, the number one thing when you're getting going on YouTube is your thumbnail and title, because it's kind of like, people judge it by its cover. If they don't click on it, they can't see it. You could have the dopest video ever. If it has a shitty thumbnail and title, nobody's watching it because nobody's clicking on it, right? So the thumbnail is me for the housing market 2021. If I go to Google Trends, people are the most common search term or field, query for Google right now in real estate is when is housing going to crash?
Right.
Is real estate a bubble? So if the thumbnail is me going like this
Yes.
with some fucking houses behind me and some flames, like you may click on it, right? Yeah. So don't be afraid to like be a little bit, put yourself out there of like make it a little bit clickbaity. Now, I don't believe the housing market's going to crash, and we're going to get into that in the video. But the point is, put that thumbnail, a good picture that's clickable in the email, put a play button on it. I do this. It takes me 2 seconds on a thing called Canva. So you take that picture, you can insert like a play button on top of it. So the picture is just a picture with a play button on it, but you link it to the video on YouTube.
Right. Yep.
So when somebody clicks that image, it opens up YouTube on their phone or on their computer. So I send that out, and then it tracks like, oh, how many people opened this email? Of the people that opened it, how many people clicked on the link? Now, not that many people clicked on the link. That means your title and thumbnail aren't performing well. You need to reevaluate that, So these are the little things you get into that make a huge difference, because when you start to email thousands and thousands of people, that difference of title, that difference of subject line, that difference of the thumbnail makes hundreds of views of difference. And when somebody's watching your video for 4 or 5 minutes, these are valuable views. This is not like the social where somebody just scrolled by and hearted it up.
Yeah.
This is like somebody taking the time to watch your content. So for me, this has been the most results. It doesn't get you the vanity metrics, doesn't get you the flex on Instagram, but it definitely leads to dollars, because these are valuable views on YouTube.
So will you?
Man, that's a clinic.
Yeah. So
that's great.
and then a 2-part question. When you say you're tracking it, and you go, oh, this person opened, this person clicked, this person watched my video. Do you have follow-up processes in your business where you'll either have another touch? I'm assuming.
Yeah, you can. So you can retarget them with an ad later. Now, if you're putting out a series on, informational things about insurance, for example, and somebody's watching multiple things, then if you had their contact information, I would, any sales team that could do it, I would definitely reach out to those people to convert them, because now they've already raised their hand. Right. You're not bothering them at that point because they're interested. When you call them that they wanted to hear from you. It's not like, guessing. So that's a way to get people to raise their hand. I do this on Facebook a lot. If you run Facebook ads, the way I run a Facebook ad is I'll run an informational video. I'll do 3 or 4 of those and promote them, run those as paid ads to a group of people. The group of people that we're running the ad to, there's no CTA in this ad. It's just an informational video. But what happens is Then I'm going to do an ad which has a clear CTA, which is going to say, click here and we can book a call, or click here to start your application. That video is only going to be shown to people who watched more than 5 seconds of the first 3 informational videos. So now I know, hey, if somebody watched these videos, they have a level of interest. They've raised their hand. If I sell to those people, it's going to be actually relevant to them. So what I'm trying to do is use informational content to let me see who's interested and then send them sales content.
Amazing. I didn't know you could retarget on Facebook like that. I've never.
Yeah, dude, it's amazing.
That.
I mean, the tools that these platforms give us is, that's why the company's so valuable, right? Because they have all these insights for advertisers. I mean, it's unlike anything else. So you can show people. What's crazy is if you ever go into Facebook or Instagram, you go to like your interest, it's somewhere deep in your profile. It has a record of literally everything you've ever clicked on or interested in. So like, it could be embarrassing for some people, but like there's some shit in there, man. You got to go in there and like clear some of that out of there. But
yeah, can you delete that?
Man, yeah, you can go in there. You could tell them you don't want any of this to be tracked. But for the average user, these platforms know a lot about you. Now, somebody who might say, "Oh, it's Big Brother. I don't want them knowing my stuff." For me, I don't mind being served relevant ads. Like, the more relevant, the better. That's the whole value of being on here. Like when I get an ad, I don't know what these phones are fucking listening to us or whatever, but I'll talk about something, and then all of a sudden you see the ad in your social. Yeah. Like that's okay because it's relevant to me. I'm not worried about it. So yeah, you want to use that to your advantage by giving people relevant ads. And then those ads are going to convert. So when I do real estate events, like I'm doing an event in July, I'll target people in the real estate industry and then see how many people have viewed all my past videos. Those are people that already have a somewhat, base level of rapport with me. Even though we've never spoken, they've seen some content from me. So now when I send them that ad, it's going to convert.
Man, I just learned something. That's incredible, man. Talk about just being very strategic, right? Like, man, that's really cool. That's really good, Neel. Thank you for that.
Another thing
dude, there's so much stuff in here. It's just like you could go down rabbit holes upon rabbit holes. Then you realize the opportunity, and you start to like not be able to sleep at night. That's kind of, you're like, oh shit, I didn't even know I could do that. Then like the wheels turn. You're like, oh, I got to get on that, and then it becomes overwhelming. So you just do the best you can, one thing at a time, and you build it. Like I had to take a step back to do the CRM thing. That was a pain in the ass. I mean, it cost me $20,000 just for the software licenses and everything, and then you're paying another $10,000 to a developer to help you do all the triggers and all that. I mean, but that stuff that you take a step back, you have to do it for your business.
Yeah, it's funny. We're in a very similar cycle right there where, that what we have just isn't doing what we want it to do. And then you duct tape it together with all this other stuff. And you're finally like, okay, guys, what's the deal here?
Yeah, like I can't have another Excel spreadsheet, right?
Yeah,
I gotta, there's a limit. I've reached the limit of Excel spreadsheets.
I love what you said about the CRM. I love it.
Yeah, I'm so disappointed you said that, Neel. Now we really have to spend some money here.
Yeah, look at HubSpot. Look, Salesforce, I would tell you, is the most common enterprise one. But the problem with the Salesforce is it comes as a blank slate. Yeah. You have to build everything. Know
what you want. Yeah.
And you have to develop it. So it's like I've become a intermediate level Salesforce developer through this process because of all the shit that you can do in there.
Right.
But I think, there's definitely other systems if you Google it, but like even I've had people tell me HubSpot, which is probably half the cost, is really good for marketing. And it's just landing pages and emails and all that kind of stuff. So keeping track of your people and dumping everything in there and then leveraging technology. So I'm all for it, as far as leveraging tech, but you just got to be a little more smart with how are you doing it? Like it used to be back in the day on Facebook, you could just run an ad. You can give me your money. They won't even take your money now if it's a shitty ad. So I used to run a video ad and they'll be like, dude, we can't serve your ads to any more people. I'm like, what do you mean? I paid you. They're like, we don't want your money. Here you go. Take it back.
Is that
I'm
really?
Like, what
That's how it works.
What's going on here?
Wow.
Yeah. So what happens is like, if your ad isn't good and people aren't watching it, they stop serving the ad because their number one goal is to keep people on the platforms. They don't want to serve shitty ads anymore.
I didn't know that.
Used to be back in the day, they'll take everybody, but now they're at the point in their business where, if people aren't watching it, they're not engaging with it, the ad just reach goes down and down. Now, if somebody's watching your ad, it shows it to so many people for fractions of the cost.
Wow.
So what's cool about Facebook ads is you can scale the number of people you reach if the ad is good. So what we're having to think of now is like, okay, I want to tell people that, like, let's go with like very, very basics. I want to tell people that you don't need 20% down to buy your first property, because it's a myth, right? Dave Ramsey says you got to save up the money because PMI is expensive. That's false, because PMI is cheap. There's tons of programs to help buyers get their first property with very little money. So how do I put that out there, right? I could say, did you guys know that you don't need this? And it could just be a video like that. It might get some views, whatever. What if I said, do you want to hear some horrible advice? Or do you want to hear how you've been lied to? Because that first 3 to 5 seconds is going to determine whether this ad scales or not. And if that first 3 to 5 seconds comes in hot and it's fire, this ad is going to be shown to tens of thousands of more people for the same amount of money. And that's the cool thing is, so the variable is going to be the creative. So you have to think of new ways. And even it could be as simple as, instead of doing it at this office, I go out in the car and shoot it while driving, or walk outside my office and it's cool behind, there's mountains and there's, shit moving around behind me. So that is more engaging. There's just little things you can do to make your videos more engaging. And then now that reaches way more people for no more money. So those are just things you can do for free.
It's like good and bad. If you're good, it's great. If you get the "you suck" push notification, then you might have to rethink your whole deal there.
Yeah. So what you're saying is,
I got that the first time. I was shocked.
That's amazing.
I was like, oh shit, this doesn't work the way I thought. I thought it was like a TV spot or a billboard. You just pay them and you get your ad run. That's not the way it works.
Interesting.
So Neel, you switched gears a little bit on us there with your idea of your video with the houses on fire. What, if you don't mind me asking, what do you see in the market in the next couple of years? What's kind of your feeling of what's going on, and talk to us a little bit about that. I know you have a real estate background as well, so I'd love to know.
Yeah, so real estate's super local, it's hyper local. But if you think about these markets, Florida, Texas, Nevada, Colorado, these markets where people have migrated, those migration patterns have only accelerated because of COVID, right? Because right now, the value that somebody places on their home where they reside, it exploded over the last year. It's a personal feeling because you spent so much time in your home that you realize, hey, this isn't the right place, this isn't the right neighborhood, or I want this for my home. So the number of people who want a home or who are into home ownership was already rising, but it just hit a hockey stick in 2020 because of COVID. So that demand exploded. As a result, like you see all this activity on the demand side, the supply of homes for sale is still very, very low. So, like the number of homes available is not, like, there's not enough homes available to serve this demand. So, just basic supply demand, that's going to keep a floor under prices. That's going to keep prices rising. The only thing I would say that would change that is if demand went down significantly, because I don't see supply increasing at enough of a pace. There's not enough people selling their home because they're staying put or they're just not making as many moves. The other thing is builders underbuilt. If you look at the stat on, new home builds for the decade from 2000 to 2010 versus the decade 2010 to 2020, they built like only 40% of what they built in the previous decade because they didn't anticipate this level of demand and because they were so burnt by the housing crash of 2008, 2009. Right. They didn't want to put themselves in that position again, right? So if you look at our markets right now, we have maybe 1 month or less of inventory. Before the housing market collapsed in 2008, 2009, there was like 7 or 8 months of inventory in certain markets, right? So the only way you're going to see a shift is if all of a sudden this supply-demand thing gets out of whack. And on the inside, the only thing I could see that would cause that is if interest rates spike. Now, interest rates volatility is okay, but if they shoot up like 2 points in a short period of time, then that's going to, throw water on the fire as far as demand goes. And then you could see this thing cool off a little bit. But I just don't see a crash. I just see like ebb and flow. Maybe you'll see a little bit of a slowdown at some point.
Yeah, you can't find a house here. I mean, it's like, I'm sure it's the same way there. It's
like
it's on the market for an hour.
Yeah,
that's what's happened, right?
I didn't think about the builder aspect as much. It's like, remember like whiskey became popular, Blanton's. Like you would go try to get I don't know if you drink whiskey, Neel, but like you would go get like a glass of Blanton's and they'd be like, yeah, we don't have it. No one had it because it was like it had to be aged for so long, and they didn't predict the demand, and it wasn't as quick of saying like, hey, we're just going to make more Bland's whiskey because it has to be aged for a certain time period. And I think when you mentioned that, maybe I'm an alcoholic, but the fact that the builders, they can't just go, oh yeah, there's more demand, let's build, right? Because then you're talking about materials, you're talking about labor, and you're talking about cycles where that's going to take years to catch up, maybe even a decade to catch up. So that's fascinating.
Well, I actually asked that question for a reason, because I think the supply chain's been hurt from COVID, right? You talk about the builders not building to the degree of the demand, but they just didn't forecast the type of demand. How do you see that? You talk about supplies. If you're building a house, it's not any easier of a conversation than not having inventory, because the cost of materials is so much higher. So how do you feel like that?
You're right. I mean, look at lumber, right?
Yeah, I mean, $100 for a sheet of plywood.
It's ridiculous, right? So it's gone up. There's signs of inflation. A lot of people say it's transitory inflation. I think some of this inflation is real, maybe here to stay. But the point that you just brought up about not being able to just flip a switch about demand, like that's really how it works, right? You think about land development deals. You're buying land, like how long does it take to prep that? How long does it take to build labor teams? And there's a shortage of labor, equipment, supply chain, like all these things take years and years and years to go out. And they just didn't want to get ahead of their skis. So they were always really conservative with that because of what happened in the previous decade. So now they might be getting more aggressive, and that's where you're going to see the shift. If you see these guys getting super, super aggressive with like buying up everything, and their share prices are super high, and you start to see like that excess, and that's when you could probably plan out 5 years ahead of that, or then you could say, okay, now things are going to get overdone. They're going to be too much supply. Well, we're nowhere near that today. So, if you're buying a property to live in, that I wouldn't worry about it. I would, if you can find it and it makes sense for you and your family, I'd pull the trigger, because you can't time this thing. It moves up and down in the short run. But the main thing is you have to get the property, right? If the property's not available, it doesn't matter what the market's doing. You can't time it if you can't find the actual thing to buy. And then on the real estate investing side, it's definitely become more difficult to get deals to make sense on a spreadsheet. Right. So you just have to be more selective. Or, the good thing is that the cost of money is cheap. Rents have been rising at the same pace, if not more, than prices. So that's kind of made deals work. But it is getting more difficult on the investing side to make sense of these numbers.
Neel, let me ask you a question. So I know that obviously you're heavy in the real estate game as far as investing, and you're in a bunch of different things from just making your money work. Have you unloaded some of those properties as of recent? Have you hung on to them? I know you're still super active.
Yeah. So what happened for me was I would buy properties and then, sell them and stuff. And it was kind of I would look at it almost like trading in the markets on a long-term basis. And this is kind of the result of me going through the last crisis, trying to time this thing. Oh, I've got a bunch of equity and moving on. Now, if you needed those funds to buy the next deal, I totally get that. But in my experience, I regret selling every piece of real estate. Any sale has been a bad sale for me for the past 10 years. Wow. Because if I would have held it, the cash flow would have increased, the appreciation would have been great. And I know that's easy to say, hindsight 2020, but if you don't need the cash, like what's more valuable to me? It's future cash flow, future appreciation. And now you have something that people are fighting over. They're literally, beating each other down. It's like Black Friday on these properties, right? So, I mean, yeah, it is. Why would you want to give that up? And that's partially leading to this shortage of inventory because nobody's selling, like if you've got gold, why do you want to give it up? So I just look at it as, if I were to sell something and book that $200,000 or $300,000 gain, how's that going to help me? Like, I don't need the money. It doesn't, like, it's kind of a weird thing. I hate being like a cliche dude who says money's not important, but it really doesn't change anything unless you can get to super wealthy. Like we were talking about billionaires earlier. Yeah, then maybe that's pretty dope. But like when you go from making, $200,000-$300,000 to making a couple $1 million, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but literally nothing changes. I woke up today and I'm like, shit, I got a lot to do. I got to do this. where's our next business come? All these people out here in the office are relying on me for what are we doing? I got the same stress, if not more. Like, it doesn't help. It doesn't really change anything. So I don't need the money. I need the cash flow, because that's what helps me sleep, is knowing that, dude, if I got hit by a bus, my family's going to have this asset that produces rent for the rest of their life. If I can build enough of that, I could say peace out and not work another day in my life, because I have enough income coming in from these properties. So that's what gives me peace of mind, not the cash. The cash is garbage. I mean, the cash just bleeds. You know what I mean? I put it in the bank, then all of a sudden my wife's like, oh, let's put a pool in the backyard. Let's go here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's hide the cash from everybody in these properties.
We were talking about this the other day where somebody said, like, cash is king. I was like, that's bullshit. Cash isn't king. Cash gets spent.
Yeah, exactly, dude. You find a way to blow it. I got a fucking Lamborghini downstairs. Like, I didn't need to buy that.
I was going to say, I saw the car.
You know what I mean? It's like,
I was going to bring the car up. That's a pretty sick car, though.
It's pretty fun.
It's dope, but I'm saying it's probably not the best use of money. But what I did find, this is by accident. I didn't think of this. I did find that car is a rare vehicle now, because there's not that many. If you look for a Urus, you can't find that many. And as a result, they've appreciated, which is weird. I mean, cars normally fall like a brick, but these exotic vehicles, some of them you view that as an asset class. But yeah, I think I got that car for free, because if you buy a vehicle for business purposes, you can write, if it's over 6,500 pounds, you can write the whole thing off, depreciation. So you'll save, 50, 60 grand on taxes on an exotic vehicle. Then, so really, that car I bought it slightly used so I could get rid of that initial depreciation. So I got the car for 200 grand, take the write-off, so really it only cost me 130 grand, because I saved 70 G's in taxes. Now it's 130 grand. Will I make 130 grand off of that vehicle? I already have, because you just put it in your content and it starts conversation, right? So I'm not the kind of guy who's like flashy, whatever, but at the same time, it's just a dope car. People talk to you about it. Like, I'll park in the garage. Some dude will be like, oh, start a conversation. 3 weeks later, he sent me a client. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I guess this is how this works. Okay.
Wow.
So it's not fair, but people give you credibility based on these things. And it's just another way to get attention or to use for marketing. So I put it in a lot of content just for that purpose.
That's great.
I was actually thinking back when you just mentioned that credibility, when Taylor asked the question about return on investment, I think it's fair to say that if credibility is your only return on investment, that's all you need, right? And you just kind of confirm that, right? I mean, credibility is probably the best form from content. I would think that credibility is the best form of return.
Exactly. That's why I invest in the content stuff, because it gives you that trust online, and that's an asset of its own. I was just talking about alternative assets the other day. I made a little quick video of like, dude, these are things that pay you. I mean, this is a cash flowing asset, your brand online, because it leads to more business in the future. Yeah. And it's something that takes time and money to invest in, right? When I have to hire a dude to help me with videos, or when I have to hire someone to help me repurpose content, that's real dollars you're putting out there. When I spend a couple hours a night doing something online, that's time, that's money. So yeah, that's definitely an asset that I think is underrated right now, because it doesn't pay you initially. But it's something that anybody who's listening to this, watching this, whatever, all of us here in this room today can do more of, and it's going to pay us in the future.
And I dig that. I just wanted to say what you just said was a clinic as far as, as the delayed. There's such a delayed gratification. If you do an ad and you send a direct mail campaign, you're tracking, and it's just so simple, right?
Transactional.
But it may even be bad results, but maybe it makes you feel good, makes you feel like you're taking action. I think, the content marketing, personal brand, whatever, it's such a long road. And like you said, there's not that many hacks. You can definitely learn from people like yourself, but it just takes putting in time and not shortcutting it. But what I wanted to circle back to is kind of what you talked about, the sale of rental properties and stuff like that. Just the thought about how your team's grown, right? So to think that, your team has grown significantly, I'm assuming, because look, your income's grown significantly, but now you hit a skid where you've been doing this stuff for years, right? You've been doing the delayed gratification. Maybe you're not seeing results. You're putting up a bad video. You're removing your content. Maybe it reaches somebody, but you're kind of building this thing and this thing and this thing. And then you hit a skid where now you're in a market that's super explosive. And now you have 23 team members instead of whatever it was before. And now you're able to take advantage of that, where you couldn't have just gotten to this market right now and said, hey, I got to go from 10 people to 23 people. Maybe it's from a cash flow perspective. Maybe it's just the effort and the time that it takes to bring somebody in and train them. And maybe I'm making assumptions, but I would love to have you talk about what that's meant to your business from doing this stuff when you don't necessarily know when that time comes, to be in a position where you can actually take market share. You can actually take some railroads, as we'd call it.
Yeah, dude, that's a huge thing that you just brought up, because you talk about, rates dropped and you made a bunch of money, you're lucky. No, you have to be in a position to get lucky, right? You can't capture a bunch of business when the market hits its stride if you don't have the team and the system in place.
Right.
So people are like, why waste all week building your CRM? I don't know. I might need it in the future. What the fuck happened? COVID comes around. Rates dropped to 2%. Hey, it's pretty cool having a CRM, huh? Where shit just rolls in and is automated and shit, and you can follow up on everything and nothing falls through the cracks. Now all of a sudden, that thing that was not really that important becomes worth millions of dollars in revenues, right? Or that team, right? So you got to build it before you need it, right? You got to put this shit in first, and it's still viable. Like even in a flat market, or whatever, if you guys are building your teams, having more people is just going to result in more business. But if you ever hit a thing where like a particular ad campaign takes off, you got to have the infrastructure in place to handle that exponential growth.
Right.
And that's got to be the people and the system. So I think that's huge. Putting in the work. Like, do we really need to add some more salespeople right now? No, we're doing pretty good. I'm good. The same reason why you guys are working out in the morning. I see you guys posting every morning. Where do you work out, by the way? Is that in somebody's driveway or something?
That's at my
it's
house.
like
These
in the
savages,
dirt. You guys are raw, man.
These savages come over early in the morning.
Come over to eat.
But you know what I mean? You're putting in the work. If I go to the gym, nobody's there at 7 a.m. It's the same kind of thing. You put in, and you just setting yourself up for the future. So this is with hiring. It's the same thing. Like, you may not need right now more salespeople, but if you just kind of put in that work of like, okay, we're just kind of always in the mode of growing the team.
Yes.
We may not need to. I'm not in a dire need to hire more salespeople, but just kind of put yourself in there. And then it just kind of keeps growing, and it's still great, even if you don't, if it's not a time when you need all these people. But if you ever hit a moment where like it does, you're gonna be just stoked that you have this infrastructure already in place.
Man, well, Neel, we could literally talk to you for like hours.
Yeah.
I could see these guys' brains moving.
We're just getting warmed up.
You're literally playing the game of Monopoly in real life, man. And I just want to tell you, it's been such an inspiration and a joy for me to have the opportunity to just connect with you. And now these guys are my best friends in the world, my business partners, my blood. I mean, so just to have an opportunity to just spend the time, and I know that anybody that's listening to this podcast, I mean, this is like when you're driving and you have to like pull over the car and like take notes. There's a bunch
there's
of stuff.
definitely some nuggets in this one.
Yeah, there's some nuggets, man. And I'm just super grateful, because I know as soon as this camera goes off, you've got 3 fire drills that you're gonna have to put out, and you got a whole team that's looking for you to get after it and do what you do every day. So, man, if you guys enjoyed the podcast, man, please share this. If you guys haven't followed Neel, where can they find you besides just opening up their phones, because they'd probably find you anyway. But where can they find you online?
Just search on all the platforms Neel Home, NEELHOME, and you'll find me on Instagram. In my bio or profile, there's a link if you want to join my email list. So even if you are someone who doesn't necessarily want the content, but just wants to do what Brett was talking about as far as like ideas to generate your own. So I get a lot of people just subscribe to that list just to see the content that I'm sending out. So the email strategy that we talked about earlier, put yourself on that email list, and then you'll see those emails as they go out. You can see how I do the copy. You can see the thumbnails and kind of benefit from that. But yeah, just connect with me there, and I try to respond to everybody. Might take me a minute, but I always get back to every single person that reaches out. So if you have a question, just hit me up and I'll get back to you for sure.
Dude, you're awesome, man. Well, I'll tell you what, like we always talk about life not needing to be ordinary. Gentlemen, this gentleman is be extraordinary, my friend. Thank you so much for stopping by. You're amazing. Neel, thanks so much, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you.